First, to introduce our conversation partners today, I'm next to Beverly Davenport, who is the Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs and Provost at UC. She is the first female to ever serve in that role at the university, and she works tirelessly, and I can say this because I work for her now, to make UC a welcoming, inclusive place for students, for faculty, and for staff. She's a respected scholar and author of books on organizational communications and civility. She tweets, she does not Facebook, but she's a really thoughtful tweeter in that it's all about quality over quantity, and I've always been impressed by the way she teases me when I use this word, but curates the information that she shares. So I think people who follow her tend to really be the kind of thoughtful people who follow specific issues, so I'm going to ask her to talk about that. And thank you so much for making time to be here, even though your schedule does not stop. And another person whose schedule doesn't stop is Cincinnati City Council member Chris Seelbach. Thank you for coming to our campus. In 2011, he made history by becoming the first openly gay politician elected to City Council. And just in 2013, he traveled to the White House where he received the prestigious Harvey Milk Champions of Change Award for championing equality and public service. Under his leadership, the city has repealed the discriminatory Article 12 and passed equal partner health and retirement benefits for all city employees. And those are just a couple of the many progressive initiatives that Councilmember Seelbach has helped introduce to our city.
Not all just gay.
Not all just gay.
Other than gay stuff as well.
This is true. Sorry about that. That's true. His social media presence on Facebook and Twitter have garnered headlines, and especially, although I'm sorry, I'm going to bring up Leila Alcorn if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So especially last year when the community was sort of faced some violence and and really a lot of controversy over the Leila Alcorn's suicide, and Councilmember Seelbach was a very thoughtful and I thought very just understanding voice in the community among leaders to kind of bring some uncomfortable conversations into the public eye, but also help us all to talk about things in a more open and I think compassionate way. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And next is Ashley Nkadi, who is a student voice in our discussion. She is a neuropsychology major, a Cincinnati presidential scholar, and part of UC's honors program. She also founded Noir, which is a relatively new this year monthly online magazine, which she also designs because she does everything, because she's superhuman. Because she's Ashley. And what Noir is, it's UC's premier ethnic magazine designed to highlight ethnic individuals, communities, and organizations on campus. However, Noir is completely inclusive and for all people of all backgrounds. So we're really happy to have her here as well. So one of the first questions that I would just like the panelists to address is sort of when you use social media, what are your goals? Why do you use social media?
Looking at me.
I know, just because you're right next to me.
Why do I use social media? Why do I use social media? Well, first of all, because I came to the University of Cincinnati. And I'm not sure, is this on? Do we need, does it show me on? It doesn't, I don't think we're on. I said I use social media first because I came to the University of Cincinnati. It's hard to be here and not tweet, especially when you have a president who is so prolific. And then as I became more comfortable and more thoughtful about tweeting, I think I wanted to identify with this generation of tweeters, and I wanted you to know that I certainly understand technology and I understand the power of social media. And then this is a question I get all the time: what do you do other than work? And not that you see so much of what I do other than work. I wanted you to know what your Chief Academic Officer values and what I think is important and what I want this university to hold up as something that we stand for. And one of the things that you will see on my Twitter, well, one, what time of the day I can tweet or I find time to tweet, which often is in the middle of the night. I want you to know that there are principled things that we should take stands on, and that might move us into this question about what we tweet or what we would or what we wouldn't tweet. But I am careful about what topics I choose, but I also think it's important that you see the issues, the student groups, the topics, what we're grappling with, what we do here at the university. So I think my goals are pretty straightforward. It's not that complicated. If you look at my Twitter, I put out there topics and issues that I'm interested in, and then topics and issues that I want. I think of students being the audience more than anything, but I know other people are paying attention. I think it's not just me, and I think any of those who are in positions like mine, I am not always just speaking for me, I'm speaking for something larger than just me. But it's a way for you to see what counts and what's important and what I believe in and what is a part of the administration that I am here to make a difference in.
Thank you.
So first of all, I want to say how crazy it was. So I parked in a meter outside and walked from the street over the campus to get here. And as I was walking, the person beside me said, "Are you Chris Seelbach?" And I'm like, "Yes." And anytime anyone says that, I'm like, and I don't know them, I'm like, I feel bad. Where did I meet this person? He goes, "Oh, I follow you on Twitter." And I'm only on campus a couple times a year and had never met this person in my life. So it was really ironic. And I said, "Well, are you coming to this event?" He's like, "What event?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm going to talk about the power of social media." And he's like, "No, I'm on my way to a biology class." And I said, "I have to mention this because, we'd never met, and he recognized me from following me on Twitter." So I think that is evidence of how powerful social media can be if it's used, in a way that affects people and moves people. So I think I use social media probably for 3 reasons. One is just a personal way, and so it allows me to express myself, to keep up with my family members, to allow people to know what I'm doing, and my friends to comment back and forth and engage in kind of a very social part of life. The second is to be provocative. I mean, I am not a safe Facebook and Twitter person. So I think that there is a very powerful way to use social media to create dialogue, to create change, to make people feel uncomfortable sometimes, because that's what you have to do sometimes in order to get people to talk about hard issues. And the last is to solicit feedback. I mean, as an elected person, I am not successful unless there's tremendous buy-in from the people that I represent. And you get that by truly listening to the people that live in the city of Cincinnati. And so I use it to see what people think of ideas, ask people what we're doing well and what we're not doing well. And I will say that, so I used to work for the former Vice Mayor, David Crowley, and so I worked for him back in the early 2000s, and most of the job of working for a council member is constituent services, so people who are calling with a pothole, or because something's wrong with their house or a building, or just things every day that we deal with the city fixes. Garbage didn't get picked up. And back 10 years ago, we received many calls, a couple of letters, some emails, but mostly calls. I can tell you that probably 90% of the people who reach out to me now with an issue about garbage or streets or whatever it is, it's through Facebook and Twitter. So it's me getting a direct message or a tweet or a message on Facebook saying, "I have a problem, can you help me solve it?" And much less with phone calls, and even less with letters, and some with emails. So the technology has changed not only in university and how we socially interact, but in how government works and how we respond to the needs of people every single day. So that's why I do this.
Can everyone, Now can everyone hear me? Okay. Raise your hand if you found out about this panel from social media. So obviously everyone in the room can see how powerful social media is. Social media has become a very, very important part of our lives. We live in a one-touch world where we can get whatever we want from our phones, from our TVs. The other day I was watching TV and I was mad because my app to control my Apple TV wasn't working. And then I sat and thought, well, it's a problem when you're mad that your app does not control your TV. Like, just get up and change the channel or find your remote. But social media can be an important tool to affect change. So my main priorities when I'm on social media is, number 1, to bring awareness to an issue, number 2, to educate on an issue, and number 3, to build a brand. So for example, I'll take the, we recently had a Blackface stir on campus. So I am the editor-in-chief for Noir magazine. So as the editor-in-chief, I was like, okay, I want to bring awareness to this issue. This is an issue that has plagued Black people for hundreds of years, and so we can shed light on it since so many people are uninformed about it. So first step was bring awareness to it. This is what happened. This is why people feel the way they feel about the issue. Number 2, to educate. This is the historical basis behind the issue. Number 3, to build a brand. So we reached out to Peter Jenkins, who was the student who did it. He was like a wonderful person. He was just misinformed. He was very apologetic. And we kind of made an infographic that I'm sure, I don't know if some of you have seen it on Facebook or not, but it was just an infographic that brought awareness, educated, and built a brand. And so it's important to build a brand because people want to hear from people they see in a positive light. So Miley Cyrus could tweet today like, oh, I think that everyone should feed homeless people, and who really cares because she was twerking at the MTV Awards last year. Her brand is almost, I don't want to say tarnish, but tarnish. So it's important to have a positive light. So from that infographic, we were able to kind of shed a positive, not a positive light on Blackface, but to turn it into a positive moment to educate the campus about it. So social media can be a really positive way to affect change because everyone's on it.
Great, and I want to do a quick introduction. Jill Shaffer, we're so glad you could join us. She is the Title IX coordinator here at UC, and the question is, you might have to flip the switch on the top. Ashley will help you.
This is great. I'm social media. I can't use a microphone.
What are your goals when you use social media?
So it's interesting because I think I'm just in the last couple of years actually thinking about that. I got on Twitter because I just wanted to follow cat memes. And so it's like was my personal account, and it's been in the last couple of years that I actually said like, oh, like people follow me and they're probably expecting something other than cat memes. So it's interesting being in a role. I'm the Title IX coordinator on campus, and so I'm in a role where I'm supposed to be neutral and impartial, but still engage on a issue that's really personal to a lot of people. So I know with my Twitter account, which is really the only social media account I have that's public, I make a lot of choices about how I engage the community through social media. But what I try to do is to present myself. So if you're being investigated by me or you've come forward with a report to my office, my hope is that people see me as a person. And I've actually investigated cases where witnesses, people who have kind of looked me up, will say things like, so you really like raccoons? And I'm like, yeah, I really do. You should tweet me a picture sometime. And it kind of creates a human face on something that I think really often gets dehumanized. And I do have opinions, and I do have a life, and I do have thoughts about things, and so this is a way for me to present information and have an opportunity to do that. Just as providing information, it's not my opinion, it's not necessarily that I agree with it, but it's an article or something that I really care about. And when I notice things are really stressful, I may tweet out a cat meme to help kind of shout out to people I know that are having a really rough day.
Great. So the next thing that we wanted to talk about, unless somebody has something they want to follow up with on that, is sort of are there issues that you say, yes, I'm always going to engage when I see something about this issue. I want my voice in that conversation. And are there contrarily issues that you're like, no, I am in this role. I'm either a public figure. Well, everybody here is a public figure to an extent. And I'm very aware of how this might impact my brand, so I'm going to stay away from it. And how do you make those kinds of decisions? And we don't have to go down the line. If somebody has you can if you want to answer first.
Let's see. I'll start. So I don't know, maybe all of you get this, but I get a lot of, well, this comes with the territory, being in politics, being elected, but there's a lot of haters. You know, haters got to hate. And so there's a lot of people. Last week I was told someone wanted to throw me or flush me down a toilet, and that I was an embarrassment. And so you get a lot. It's just a normal thing every day with people that are elected, especially people who actually do things that are elected. And so those tweets and those social media, because you can hide behind anonymous Twitter accounts or Facebook profiles or fake emails, and so it's very easy for people to be mean. And so if and you probably know this doing social and working in work environments, it's mostly best to ignore people that do personal attacks and don't have substantive issues they want to talk about. But if someone wants to engage me on a substantive issue, I almost always respond. So if it's, why did you take this vote, or what are you going to do to make Cincinnati more safe, or if there's a topical issue like when Leila Alcorn committed suicide, I mean, that's something that I will take up immediately and talk about on social media and in a very kind of open and honest way. But I think there's a line between engaging in thoughtful, reasonable discussion and interacting with people who have nothing but personal attacks to offer.
That's true.
You're thoughtful. I'm going to start reading your tweets. I've never thought of Twitter as a place to engage in controversial issues. I retweet people's opinions. I retweet, you'll see a lot about women's issues in my tweets. You'll see issues about inclusiveness, about diversity, about LGBTQ community issues. I don't tweet everything that is important to me, mainly because I don't have a lot of time. I would probably shy away from the most substantive issues because I don't think it's the best way for me. I applaud you for doing it. Because of my job, I wouldn't take head on the toughest issues in Twitter. There are not enough words for me. I'm always having to delete. I'm on -81 and I haven't even gotten started. So it's not the best medium for me. I would rather be in a public forum. If I'm going to take on a tough public issue, I want you to see me, I want you to know me, I want to have an opportunity to hear you. So it's not the medium that I would want to deal with the toughest, but my job's a different job from you. We both work in a public sphere, but I probably wouldn't take on the toughest issues. But I respond. There are people in this audience who can tell you when they are, I think of it as when they're hitting at me, when they are tweeting at me at UC Provost, where are you, where are you? I hear that and I feel that and I will respond to that. So it is a medium that's powerful and it's one that works, but when it's a real tough issue, I'll be there. I'll show up in person, but it's probably not the space where I'm going to tackle the toughest issues. So the second part of that question, what would you not address? I don't know that I can give you a list. I certainly would I will not deal with name calling. I will not deal with incivility. I would ignore that. I think I'll wait to say something about incivility. That's the next question that you want us to deal with. I want you to know what I value. I will put out there what I think is important. I will let you see what matters to me, but I am not going to take on tough, hard, substantive issues unless it gets to the point that I have to say, here's what I believe, and let's show up and have this kind of dialogue about it. It's just, is it 140 characters? Is that our limit? Yeah, that's not enough for me. I have to have a much larger platform when it gets to be really tough and controversial issues. And I also am mindful, too, it is me and me as a representative of UC, too. So.
And that's it's interesting to get the different perspectives because there's such validity in each of them. So Ashley, from a student perspective, where do you fall on that line? Are there things that you are thinking of differently because of your position?
I think I'm actually in a really cool position. I have I have no ties, I have no jobs or offices to try to hold on to, so I can say whatever I want, really, which is kind of cool because I feel the more controversial the topic, the more provocative the topic, the better, because it needs to be talked about. I want to talk about the LGBTQ community. I want to talk about rape culture. I want to talk about social injustice. I want to educate those who are ignorant. In a panel I sat in on Monday in the UC IT lab, I said I live by a never leave someone as ignorant as you found them policy. And so I want to address ignorance wherever it is. So anything that's controversial, I love to talk about. I love to get feedback on it, and we do have, in the Noir magazine, a little bubble for feedback, and I do get negative feedback, and I do get positive feedback, but either way, you were educated in some way, and you were made to think about something and how you felt about something, so that's all I'm really trying to do. As far as things that I won't address, sometimes I have to think, like, do I really, really, really want to tackle this? Because I'm building a brand, so do I really, really want to cut that tie or that relationship that could possibly elevate me later? But chances are, if I'm addressing something, it's because you were being racist, sexist, or any type of discriminatory. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and attack that. So if there's anything I won't touch on, fluff. Things that are just irrelevant. I don't want to talk about the new restaurants that are on campus. I don't want to talk about what's hot in celebrity news. No, I want to address issues at hand that are important that people need to know about.
Cool. And Jill, you have a whole different set of challenges, I think, with your social media identity.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes I have to do, I think, similar to Provost Davenport, of thinking about what my battle is, and is this the venue that I can actually have the conversation? And I also think about how easy it is to misunderstand, to take something out of context when I have 140 characters. So there are sometimes when I'm silent and I may go like, just listen. There's a huge usefulness in the people. I mean, I love that you're saying that. It's so awesome. When there's somebody who says, I'm just going to do it, right? I got to have this voice, and this is my venue, that I get a chance to just read that. And I think I actually wasn't really on social media a lot when I was at the game. And so when that whole thing hit, I clicked on, it was like we were almost done with the game when I was like, I'm just gonna check. And that blew up, and I was like, I'm just gonna sit and watch right now so I can hear what our students are thinking and feeling and how they're experiencing it versus me jumping in, because I wanted to, number one, I wanted to learn, but I also wanted to give students the space to have their own conversations. So sometimes I may step in, sometimes I don't. And there have been a few times where I've been the person who started the controversy, and I have to usually end up apologizing, and that's when there's more cat memes, just so you know, when I have to say I'm sorry because I put my foot in my mouth on social media. So I think you do get to see our humanity a lot, because we'll say something and go, God, I could have said that so much different if I'd had 200 characters, right?
Just that extra 5 characters would have made all the difference.
It would have,
sometimes.
yeah.
It would have, I know. No more room for cat memes. So another sort of following on the heels of that, I think, is an idea of how many people in the audience are students. So a good number of students. So you guys have some great experiences and some history with social media and just with building awareness and building careers, building awareness about your work. So what advice would you offer to students working and going to school, trying to build their own brands and identities, and talking about how to use social media to their best benefit?
Everything you say matters. And it's not your values that I'm talking about. The last dissertation I directed was about cyber vetting. If you don't know what cyber vetting is, you need to know about cyber vetting. Everything you say and every photo that you post is discoverable in some ways. Companies pay people, hire people to vet you. Funny, and driving to work this morning, there was a story about reputation management. There are companies, look it up, reputationmanagement.com, reputation.com. You can have people manage your reputation. You can have people to fix your reputation. You don't want to be in a position to have your reputation fixed. You know about the red cup syndrome? It's been around for a long time. It started on Facebook. I mean, it seems harmless, and you might say, well, I don't want to work for a company that doesn't want me because they saw me in a photo with a red cup. There are way more things that you might think are worse than a red cup in your hand, but there are people who, companies who hire people to friend people on Facebook so they can find out about them. So I would tell you that impression management is inherently happening on every social media tool that you are using. So be strategic. You are branding yourself whether you think you are or not. So brand smartly. Brand carefully. I think it's really terrific that people are provocative and controversial, and thank goodness we have elected officials who will take a stand and make a difference. We don't have enough people like that. But for students, I don't really want to know about your sex life, and I would be willing to bet that most people who hire you don't want to know about it either. You can drop the F-bomb anytime you want to, but I would tell you that if you do that all the time in social media, it probably is not going to do a whole lot unless you want a job somewhere. I'm not quite sure where that is, but maybe there. Work for yourself, maybe. I read a lot of things on Twitter. I'm not on Facebook and have no intention of being on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram and Snapchat and I don't know. I don't even know what all the rest. Vine. Well, I don't even know what Vine is, but I heard about that. I depend on these people to keep me up. If nothing else, you just need to think about this phenomena that there's a language in our vocabulary, and there are for-profit companies that exist because people have managed impressions and created a reputation that they have regretted along the way. I have seen faculty posts that it's not just students. I have seen numbers of things that I am surprised people want us to know those things about them. It's so, I am old enough to be the mother of, well, maybe not you, but probably everybody else here. There are generational differences, but I've lived most of my life on a college campus, and I'm not shocked by much of anything. This is advice for you about the kinds of things. I just want you to know and to be aware that these kinds of phenomena are out there. I've spent most of my academic life writing about civility. There's a difference in being provocative and being civil. I am a firm believer that social media is not a place for name-calling. It's not a place for belittling and humiliation and condescension. Save that for wherever that's appropriate. I don't think there are many places where that's appropriate, but you can make that judgment. There's a whole line of work and a whole host of people who are concerned about cyberbullying. There have been suicides because of it. There's certainly mental health issues because of it. Those are places where I hope you draw the line. There are cowards in my mind if they won't identify themselves and they want to put that kind of, or make those kinds of language choices. There are many places in which I wouldn't engage in that kind of talk in person, and certainly wouldn't online. But I think people forget that there's an audience, and there's a huge audience out there, and you forget about the kind of modeling you're doing with the language choices that you are using. And maybe it's easier for people when they don't see the audience and they don't know who the receiver is, and they don't know what the intended consequence is. But there are a lot of personal things out there that I'm not quite sure why people want us to know those things. So you could say, well, don't look at it and don't read it. But people are reading it about you. So just think about this aspect of impression management. Everybody likes the word branding. Impression management is a pretty fundamental communication term. But it is out there, and it's discoverable, and you can say that you can keep people from seeing what you put out there, whether it's Instagram or Facebook. Twitter is out there, but everything is discoverable if somebody wants to discover it. So just the care in which, if you don't care, you don't care, but you may care. You may care in 2 years, or you may care at some point. But just know that, you know, it is an impression that you're creating. It is a reputation that you are creating.
So it's very interesting. I agree with most of what you said. And whenever we're trying to hire an intern or hire someone, the first thing I do is go to Facebook and Twitter and look to see if I can really figure out who this person is. And my mom works in corporate America, and she talks to me every day about what you say and what you don't say. And
because she's your mom,
right? And I think that it's interesting advice, because it's probably good, but I think most people don't take it. I think that most young people are still tweeting and using social media, especially the millennial generation, in a way that is probably some way could be twisted to say that, you know, you're this crazy bad person. But what's the interesting part of it is that 10 years from now, I think over 50% of anyone that's ever been on social media will have something that they have said at some point in their life that an employer will say, well, we can't hire you because of that. So then it becomes, well, we can't just eliminate half of the workforce or even more than that. And so are we going to get to a place where we accept that people make mistakes and sometimes say things in the heat of conversations, or have done things in their past that maybe they've learned from, and they can use that to be a better employee or a better colleague? I would hope that that's the case, because whenever I feel someone on social media is purposefully branding themselves, that's as soon as I start unfollowing you. So if it feels like you're just saying something to make me believe you're someone that, you know, I know you're not, because none of us are perfect and none of us are like, you know, this saint that we all want to be our boss and our president and our best friend and partners. That's when it doesn't feel authentic. So it's a tricky question of being authentic and saying who you really are, and that means making mistakes and sometimes saying things that are inappropriate, but also understanding that it could come back to haunt you. And if it does, how are you going to use that to your advantage? How are you going to say, I have made mistakes and this is how I've learned from it? I think that's the better question.
I love that idea too, because I think there's this sense of transparency. You just own. Whatever you put out there, you just have to own. And I think it's probably very true that somebody, especially in heated conversations back and forth, and I've seen a lot of them on your feeds, right, where people get very emotional and passionate about issues. So I think that's a very interesting take on sort of looking down the road at how.
And just to follow up, I mean, in politics especially, but I think in life as well, people are fine with people that make mistakes. People hate liars. So, you know, if you make a mistake, the worst thing you can do is lie about it or try to spin it. It's owning it, explaining how you've learned from it, and moving on. People, every time, I think, you know, accept that. And in politics, we see so many people that make mistakes and try to cover it up or spin it or lie about it, and that's what cost them their careers, not the fact that they made mistakes.
And I'm not talking about making mistakes. I think I couldn't agree with you more. I'm talking about people who put out there the intimate details of their sex life. Versus be passionate, get in an argument, tell us what you think about really important decisions. But do we really need to know that other piece? I don't know. What does that, I don't know what that tells us.
Just you limit your red cup pictures. Just don't make it all
or
your
just
feed.
Get something else to drink out of maybe. Or, you know, my rule of thumb is, and I'm plenty-old to have a drink, I, to this day, don't like to be photographed having a drink in my hand.
So what advice, so Ashley, you have some insights and a very different perspective on this. So what advice do you have to offer?
As far as building a social media identity, I would say first and foremost, be authentic and transparent. Be very clear about your motives and like what you're doing to like post something. Not you're doing this to anger somebody, but you're posting to be informative, you're posting to educate, you're posting your opinion to reach out and create a dialogue. Also, present yourself as you would in person. You're not different online just because your screen name is something. That doesn't mean it's not you. Someone did not possess you and post something. They did not possess you and get in an argument with someone and show out on Facebook. So don't wear anything on Instagram that you wouldn't wear around your parents. Don't say anything on Facebook that you wouldn't say to an employer, that you wouldn't say to someone who is important to you. So it's very important to present yourself as authentic and transparent on social medias. I would also say to be accountable. Once you put something out there, it's you. It's becoming a part of your identity whether you want it to or not. So be accountable for your actions. A good way, I would say, to maybe limit your passionate outbursts or like kind of censor what you're putting on Instagram or Facebook without knowing you're doing it is add as many old people as you can on your social medias. I add
Okay, what's old?
Not old people, but I add all my mom's friends, I add all my teachers and stuff, so if I'm ever gonna sit there and be like, well, I'm feeling really passionate about this, or like this person just said this and I really, really just wanna go off, but my mom's on here, she's gonna see it. My grandma might be on here, I don't want her to see that, but be authentic, be transparent, be accountable for your actions, and also, I don't know, just don't ever post anything that you wouldn't want your family members, your employers, people who look up to you to see. Because it's not even just, oh, if I post this, I might not be able to get a job, but everyone on this campus who's a second year, third year, probably has mentees, probably has freshmen that look up to them and stuff, and if they see you posting that, they think it's okay. And then you're not only building your identity and your brand in a negative way, but you're building other people's in a negative way.
Thank you. And Jill, you've got probably some specifics, I think.
You know, here's the thing. I mean, I don't negate anything that y'all say. I think it's all true as you're thinking about how you want to be online. I know, so I started on Twitter in 2009, and if you can get yourself back to those tweets, they probably don't sound like what they sound like now, and you can almost watch my like adult developmental experience on Twitter, because you can be like, oh, there's a moment she was trying to be a grown-up, and then we're back to the like weird jokes and like the period when I followed beer companies, right? Like it's all there.
I like your Halloween costume this year.
It was pretty sweet, I'm not gonna lie. But you know, I think you gotta be you. I think the authenticity part is true. I think, you know, you do think about what you post on there, but I'm speaking as somebody who's not a college student, and so on some level I feel like my experience is very different because we didn't have social media. And so when I say like, think about what you post, I think what I'm thinking and what you're thinking might be different. So I think you really gotta be yourself, be authentic. Some of my favorite people on Twitter right now are people who say things that I read it and I go, that is some truth, and I would never have said that online, and I'm so grateful for it. I also think working on the issues that I do, there are a lot of survivors of very violent crimes who are finding their voice through Twitter and Facebook and other social mediums, who are saying things that there's this protective instinct in me that says, don't do that. That's not safe, but they're empowered through it. So I think you gotta kind of find your own path, depending on what you wanna do in life. I mean, I have a dozen tattoos, and I didn't get my first tattoo until I was 29. And I had a pretty established job at that point. If you weren't gonna hire me, I probably wasn't gonna work for you anyway. But I wasn't, like 21-year-olds come up to me in college and be like, oh, I'm thinking about getting a full sleeve. And I'm like, all right, why don't you just add a neck tattoo and let's like go there, right? So you kind of got to think about where you're at in life, what you want to be, where you want to go, but also be honest, right? Like there are things on Twitter that I'm just like, I can't even wrap my head around why I posted that. And I don't delete a lot of them because I'm like, yeah, it's there. All those little Twitter bots out there have already captured it, so it is what it is. So I think you kind of got to be yourself and figure it out, but look to people that you trust to say, what do you think? Like, who do I want to be? Because I have my perspective, y'all have yours. None of them are wrong. It's about what do you want to do today? And accept that I think some people are kind of commenting back that I said, I wonder if we're going to reach a point where companies don't really care anymore about our social media because everybody has the good, the bad, and the ugly online. And so can I really judge somebody as the supervisor when I know all of my stuff is up there? So, I mean, I think you just sort of find your journey, find your path, and be thoughtful. Go to other people and say, who do you want to be?
Not in my lifetime. Maybe in yours. I'm way too old. They're going to care. Somebody's going to care. So just don't go work for them. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw, I don't know if you all remember, Jeb Bush, who's absolutely running for president.
Oh, my gosh.
He hired a communications director. And they announced this person who had worked on many campaigns, was successful. His personal Twitter account 5 years ago he said something that was absolutely sexist and horrible. But it was 5 years ago, and he was immediately fired. So we are not close, I don't think, especially in those types of roles where you can say something that inappropriate and not expect to have severe consequences.
I would have fired him on the spot. Yeah. I'd like to think I would have never hired him, but well, he's incompetent too. But other than that, being incompetent and sexist and really awful jokes, but other than that.
Other than that. All right, so that actually leads really naturally, I think, to the last question that I had, and I hope we still have a couple of minutes to get questions from the audience. So who are people who you are influenced by on social media? Because I think the idea of looking to some examples and some people who may not be personal mentors, but whose accounts you follow or whose tweets you're always like or whose posts you're always thinking, oh, that's the kind of thing I want to aspire to be. So do you have some favorites you could share?
Don't ask me first. I'm not. I'm going to follow you.
Who
do you all follow? Who do the young people follow?
Everyone. This is the one panel discussion where everyone's on their phone.
I know. I'm looking right now. Who do I?
Ever. I feel completely ignored.
I retweet Huff posts often. Let's see. Who else do I retweet? You and Kara. Let's see.
I want to do Jill retweets. Who do you retweet, Jill?
It's vicious. For
Raccoon people.
A fun mix of like social justice and awareness, and also some just snarky comments. I love Awesomely Lovey. I think she's fantastic. There's a lot of, pretty much everybody that's pretty closely affiliated with the Know Your Nine work has Twitter. And they post a lot of really good Title IX articles, and many of them are still students, so it's pretty exciting to you'll see the mix of the moments when they're like, all I want is a tea and a cuddle buddy, and it's finals, and then they're like, the next tweet is powerful articles from the Washington Post. So I love that. And I just found yesterday a guy named Ariel Cruz, who identifies as bisexual and is actively working within the Christian community, talking about LGBTQ, and he's been posting some really interesting things just in the last 24 hours that I've been following. And then, I don't know, y'all go, I'm looking.
I follow a lot of UC people, and now I've decided that I tweet for promotional purposes. I do, and I wrote that down. I think it's to say to my colleagues, I see you, I know what you're doing, way to go, I'm glad to know that and keep up the good work, and so, I mean, that's another reason to tweet. I can't touch everybody that I want to touch, but I want to say I'm watching, and I'm glad that you're doing that, and I follow what veterans are doing. I follow some women's groups. But I do follow a lot of UC people. I follow Cincinnati. Things are going in Cincinnati. I follow the New York Times. I follow Oprah. Who doesn't follow Oprah? Oh my gosh.
That was going to be one of mine.
Oh, go.
Sorry. No, I mean, I think I often watch the OWN network and her Soul Sunday or whatever thing, and I'll quote Oprah and tweet at her. But one of the ones, I'm also a huge animal person, and the Cincinnati Zoo does a fantastic job of tweeting about the animals and actually helping you get to know each of the animals. If you don't know, we have a lion family right now. John the lion with Imanu, they just had 3 cubs. They just got all 3 named. They're all 3 girl cubs. And they do a great job of helping us get to know our fantastic animals in our zoo. So that's a good one. And then, most of my actual retweets and favorites are my colleagues and the press. I mean, besides me talking about what I had for dinner, what we're doing this weekend, most of my Twitter is around politics and what's going on in Cincinnati. So, but the zoo is a fantastic, whoever does their social media does a great job.
What about you, Ashley?
I follow my peers, but not all my peers. There's like a large gap in between who's following me and who I follow, because I like to follow people who have visions. So I surround people with people who are like myself. Like, I don't want to see 7 days a week what you ate for dinner, or, I mean, like, it's cool and all, but I don't really care.
New food.
But sometimes it's okay, but I just want to see people who are like contributing substantially to like the world around us, and who are taking that time to like use their social media as a platform for education. your lunch last week, but just
Chris's
people who are
lunch last
educating,
week.
people
Looks
who are
good.
advocating.
Looks good.
I follow a lot of photographers, artists, activists. It's just a good way to I like to scroll down my Instagram timeline and be inspired, not just be like, oh, what's up with this weekend? So.
Well, and I think that's really interesting too, because it speaks to the power of amplification. So whether you're amplifying the people around you that you want to share their news with other people, and that's true for professional purposes, but also whether you just want to amplify something you find beautiful or inspiring, or just connecting you to something that you might not know all about those lion cubs, but now I want to know all their names.
Right.
What are all the girl names?
Okay, I have to add to.
Okay, we don't all do animals.
Well,
Okay,
All
so
of
here's
us with
3
hearts
more. These are
left.
probably my 3 favorite. Emergency kittens. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Emergency kittens?
Angry Black Lady is amazing, as is Lauren Chief Elk, and she goes by Chief Elk. Angry Black Lady does a lot of work on race issues. Lauren Chief Elk is the founder of the Save Weabe Project, which works with homicide and violence issues for Native and Indigenous women. And their tweets are really some of the people that I go, I can't believe you just posted that on Twitter, and they speak truth like 24/7. I swear they're scheduling truth bombs at 3 a.m. It's amazing.
So what kind of questions do you all have? Anyone? Anyone? Don't all rush up to the microphones at once. We've got time for everyone. Patrick.
I need to branch out.
Well, when it comes to influence and recognizing the influence that you have and what you can really do with that influence, I mean, how does that go down? What really goes through your mind when you're about to send something out there into the Twitter sphere and you recognize that people are listening to me, listening to my brand or character? How do you take these things into consideration really, and how do you utilize it or leverage it if at all possible?
Did everybody hear that question? Good job, Patrick. Nice question.
I'll go. So, I think it's knowing your audience. So knowing who your followers are. So if there are general consensus of, are they certain types of people? Are they certain groups of, threads that come together? And so knowing your biggest impact, knowing what they would be most receptive to hearing or retweeting or favoriting, I think that's your biggest influence. So, for me, if something LGBTQA happens, I know that my followers are probably going to want to hear what I have to say. Or if something that has to do with the streetcar or being progressive or conservative, people are probably going to respond to that more than what I had for lunch. So I think it's knowing your audience and then being true to yourself, but also, communicating in a way that people will want to hear.
I guess with influencing, you just have to know what your goal is. So being the editor-in-chief of Noir and the founder of Noir magazine, my goal when I founded the magazine was to bridge communities, to bridge ethnic communities, for people in the Asian American Association to be like, oh, okay, this is happening over in the Black community on campus. I want to hop over there. Or, ooh, like UC Dadak, which is a Bollywood fusion performance group on campus. Oh, I want to see what that's about. And also to increase cultural competence in general. So how do I do that? So that's in part being like, okay, this issue just happened on this side of the world that I want to address, but it's also in part, these issues are happening on campus, and there are people who are directly involved who I can directly influence. And so just knowing what your mission is and how to act it out on social media.
I don't think I use it so much to influence. I think it's about being authentic. These are things that matter to me. These are things I'm involved in. Here's how I'm spending my day. This is what the life of a provost is, and here's how I have made choices about what I care about. I haven't used it. I use it, I think, more as a megaphone or as amplification, as a congratulations. I'm glad to see you are excelling here. I'm taking a stand here. You take one too. I don't use it in that way. It's not that I might not, but I haven't.
I think that's one of the things that's so interesting about social media is that it's a tool that can be used in such a wide variety of ways, depending on your audience, depending on your identity, and your authenticity rings through no matter what your purpose or slant is. Any other questions? Yes.
This question is mostly for the provost. You said that you tend to shy away from
I don't think I've been silent on much of any issues, and if you think this was a big year for issues, I don't think we stopped last year. I walked into this university facing probably as big of an issue as I've faced in any part of my career. I think what I said earlier was I can't address big issues in 140 characters. Invite me, I'll show up. I've been in print, I've been in person. I'll write about it, but give me more than 140 characters. It will be misconstrued. I don't have chances to respond as much. I haven't been silent on much of anything. I mean, if you feel that I have, please invite me. I will talk with you on, I do it every single day of my work life. I can't be silent. My job is about taking a position on just about everything that we do. We deal with very complex issues. So I deal with them head on, and Twitter is not the answer to deal with the most complicated issues. And I'm not very quick either on Twitter. And I'm telling you, I'm at minus 81, and I hadn't even gotten started. So it's just not the medium of choice for me.
And I think it's interesting, too, because, Ashley, what you were talking about, how you addressed the controversial issue that happened last week with the blackface, it was something that I think, from a student perspective, you had, it seems like, more freedom, in a sense, to be out in front in a different way than people who had more official leadership capacities could probably even do, which I think is really fascinating. And I wonder whether that's a social media constraint because of the capacity and the sort of impression building and the amplification that happens depending on who your followers are and who your audience is. But I think it really changes.
I think as students, we kind of looked to higher administration and faculty when something happens in the world because we almost don't know how to feel ourselves. We're looking to other people, higher administration, as models for how do I feel on this issue? What do I do? How do I move from here? So I'll give you the example of when the Michael Brown announcement was made. Everyone was just looking for like an outlet for emotion. Everyone was looking like, what do I do? Like, this hurts me. And so we're looking to higher administration. Like, I know like a lot of people went to the African American Cultural and Resource Center just looking for some type of understanding, some type of answers, because we don't have the wisdom that administration does, that people who are older than us do, that people who have lived through other experiences have. So I know personally, like being like a huge fan of Ono, President Ono, I'm sorry to call him Ono, but I was looking for what is he going to say about this. I'm like really, really anxious, and I was disappointed to see for the next 24 to 36 hours he had tweeted about donuts and maybe like a few other things until finally he realized that, oh, this issue has happened, and then he just then issued a statement saying like, I did not have enough factual basis to speak on the matter. So whereas from an administration standpoint, people may be saying like, I can't speak on this for these issues, or like, maybe I saw this, so I'm gonna take like the initiative and do maybe a justice collaborative or talk to UCPD. We don't see those behind the scenes type of things, so we're really just looking to you for answers. So whereas Twitter might not be, to you, it might seem like I'm not doing anything on Twitter and stuff, but as students, I know we feel significant impact because social media is such a big part of our lives. So we might feel more impacted by the fact that you hopped on social media to admit 2 sentences about something that happened in the world more than an impact of initiatives that actually went into changing it.
I did tweet about that.
Well, not you personally, but
it is an interesting balance, and I think we're living through a very interesting time when the standard and traditional modes of communication are not, they're shifting under our feet, I think, at every moment. And to be able to have a conversation like this and to have questions like yours are really important, I think, for us to continue, not just in Social Media Week, but I think it's a really substantive, it's a substantive part of how we build community.
And we need you. I mean, we need you to say at UC Provost, where are you? But often President Ono is my boss, and I have to take a lead too, and I can't always step first, and that might sound odd to you. I do step, and I do speak, and I do have a voice, and I do have a responsibility, and I do speak, and I am who I am, and I do have my values, and I do have my position, but it's a constant calibration of where we are and what we feel, but these are some really serious and complex issues, and if the best minds in this country are trying to figure it out, but I think we hurt just like you all hurt, and I think I've been pretty vocal about where I've been on those issues, but we need you to keep speaking. You know, I have said since the day I got here, the students are going to lead us in the same way that we lead you, and I welcome those conversations.
And I know that Councilmember Seelbach needs to get out of here, and I like right on the nose. We've kept him far too long as it is, but I just want to take a moment and thank all of the panelists here for sharing their insights with us today.
Thank you all for coming.
Yeah,
Thank you for coming.
Thank you all.
I'm following you if I don't already.
And if you don't know their Twitter handles, I'm sure we'll tweet them out with UC Social Media Week 15 SMW la la la. Anyway, thank you guys so much for coming. It was great.
Thanks. I'll get it from her.